Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy, and I'm glad you're visiting my channel. Here we share new confessions every day.
My name is Ashley Morgan, and for the better part of a decade, I believed in meritocracy. I believed in the idea that if you work hard, stay honest, and keep delivering results, someone will notice. I thought loyalty mattered. I thought companies were built on people, not optics. I was wrong. I'm 35, and I live in Seattle, home of gray skies, good coffee, and fast-growing tech. I spent 8 years at a company called Vision. Started off as a junior analyst, then moved into product development, then product strategy. I climbed every step with stubborn grit and results that no one could argue with. Or so I thought. The turning point came on an unremarkable Thursday, one of those drizzly Pacific Northwest mornings where the sky never quite wakes up. I stood in the sleek, modern conference room on the 22nd floor, palms damp against the cold edge of the glass table, facing a row of executives and department heads. Behind me, the last slide of my presentation glowed on the giant screen. It was my brainchild, an adaptive AI system for live user behavior prediction, smart, scalable, and surprisingly cost-effective. I'd modeled it out across 3 revenue verticals. Oh, I looked phenomenal. Clients had been asking for smarter tools. This was the answer. I had poured my energy, my weekends, my instincts into this. I took a breath and said my final line. With a 4-month rollout, we could see a 32% increase in user engagement and double-digit conversion growth in targeted markets. We'd be first to market. Silence. Greg, the new VP of Product, 29, charismatic in a networking conference kind of way, and recently promoted from a sales background, let out a tiny chuckle. Not out loud, just enough to slice through the stillness. Ambitious, he said, folding his arms as he leaned back in his chair. But I don't think this is where we want to go right now. I blinked. Could you clarify? He smiled. That fake, polished, don't challenge me smile I'd seen him use when brushing off junior staff. It's a little academic. Overcomplicated. We need wins we can implement fast. You're thinking like a researcher, not a product lead. I looked around the table. Faces I had worked with for years. Some avoided my eyes. 1 or 2 nodded silently in agreement. No one defended me. No one said, "Wait, let's take another look." Instead, I watched as the idea I'd grown like a child was quietly buried under a pile of corporate niceties and jargon. Greg clapped his hands together. Let's park this and revisit in Q3 maybe. The meeting was over. I walked out numb. Not angry. Not yet. Just hollow. This wasn't just a rejected pitch. This was a message. My instincts told me what I didn't want to hear. I didn't fit anymore. I wasn't part of the new club. Greg wanted loud ideas, flashy metrics, and young faces to go with them. I was too careful, too precise, too established. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling, going over every slide, every word I'd said. I questioned everything. Was I really out of touch? Was I no longer relevant in an industry I had grown up in? A week later, I got the answer. It was an email. No meeting. No phone call. Just a subject line, organizational change notification. Dear Ashley, after careful consideration of our product roadmap and organizational needs, we've decided to restructure several roles across the product management team. Your position has been affected. Your final day will be Friday. Thank you for your contributions. Contributions. As if I hadn't built the very processes they were still using. As if I hadn't brought in and retained 5 of our top 10 clients. As if I hadn't stayed late for years cleaning up messes from half-baked strategies that Greg and others had hastily approved. I stared at the email until the words blurred. Then I got up, poured myself a glass of water, and opened a notebook. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I wrote 4 words in big, bold letters. They'll need me later. And somewhere deep down, I already knew they would try to use my idea and fail. But by the time they realized their mistake, I'd be far beyond their reach. 2 weeks after they let me go, I got a LinkedIn notification. Gregory Lang updated the company's About section, pioneering intelligent, adaptive product systems that respond in real time to user needs. I nearly laughed out loud in my kitchen. There was my pitch. Rebranded, reworded, repackaged, but unmistakably mine. Even the buzzwords matched. Adaptive product systems, real-time response, predictive user behavior. They took the blueprint and tore the map. It wasn't even subtle. A mutual contact forwarded me a press release that had gone out earlier that morning. It proudly introduced Sinner AI, a flagship initiative that promised a revolution in customer engagement through predictive learning. I read every line with a strange mix of rage and dark amusement. They had greenlit my idea, the one Greg had waved off as academic, without me. Only now it was being rolled out by a newly formed strategy innovation pod, led by two guys I had mentored when they first joined. People who, not 6 months ago, had asked me how to structure an API call. The press release was glowing, but I knew something they didn't. They had no idea how to make it work. Because the pitch had never been just a vision. It was grounded in months of granular analysis, integration plans, customer feedback loops, dev team capabilities, and back-end realities. The scaffolding of that product lived in my mind. In the notes, models, and half-coded prototypes saved on my private drive. And without those, they were flying blind. Within a month, I started getting messages, first from former coworkers, then from confused engineers who somehow still thought I was around. Hey, quick question. Do you remember how the projection variables for churn were being calculated? Sorry to bug you. Do you have the customer tiering matrix from last quarter? We can't find the right logic. Then it escalated. So, the new AI model is returning null values for our top 3 segments. Any chance you can jump on a quick call? They were stumbling. The project wasn't scalable, not the way they'd rushed it. I imagined Greg sitting in one of those meetings, nodding confidently while engineers quietly panicked under the surface. It was poetic. Not satisfying, not yet, but poetic. Meanwhile, I was busy building something else. I had turned my idea inward, refined it, and pitched it to a VC I met through a friend. Within weeks, I had seed funding and a co-founder, a brilliant systems engineer named Rima, who had seen what happened to me and said, "Let's do it better. Cleaner." And without the suits. My new company, Path, was small, agile, and fast. And most importantly, ours. While Synervision stumbled trying to retrofit a skeleton version of my system onto their clunky infrastructure, we built our platform from scratch. Modular, cloud-native, clean. We onboard our first 2 clients within a month. Meanwhile, Greg launched version 1.0 of Sinner AI at a splashy internal event, complete with balloons and espresso carts. It failed within 3 days. Their biggest client flagged it immediately. The predictions were off, the responses delayed, the integration buggy. I heard through the grapevine that support tickets doubled that week. Engineers worked weekends. Greg blamed the team. The team blamed the vision. And all of them, in one form or another, quietly circled back to me. By then, I had a new email domain, a new business card, and most importantly, I had peace. They took the blueprint, but I had always kept the map. It started with an email, then a voicemail, then another. At 3:04 a.m., my phone buzzed on my nightstand. I was awake, not because of the call, but because I was working. Founders don't really sleep. At least not in the early days. I was finalizing our 3rd client's onboarding flow, sipping lukewarm coffee in my home office, still dressed in yesterday's hoodie. The caller ID flashed. No caller ID. I didn't pick up. A few minutes later, the voicemail arrived. I clicked it out of instinct. Ashley. It's Greg. Look, I know it's late. I didn't have anyone else to call. We need to talk. About Sinner AI. Things aren't going well. We need someone who actually understands the architecture. Someone who... He paused. Someone like you. I hit delete. The silence after that was beautiful. They were unraveling. Just like I knew they would. The version of Sinner AI they launched had collapsed under its own weight. I'd heard through old colleagues that it had created erratic segment clusters. One client's VIPs had been miscategorized as inactive. The automated campaigns misfired, sending exit offers to loyal, full-price subscribers. Their churn rate spiked. Internal chaos followed. People started quitting. I received 3 LinkedIn messages from former employees asking if I was hiring. Lumenpath was growing, faster than I'd predicted. Rima and I had hired a lean, talented team who weren't afraid to experiment. We didn't have layers of approval or politics. Just results. Clean design. Tight loops between idea and implementation. And more than anything, trust. I kept thinking about that call from Greg. The crack in his voice when he said, "We need someone like you." Like me. But not me. He didn't want me back. He wanted the piece of me he thought he could extract and plug into his system. The utility of me, without the inconvenient presence of me. Too late. You don't fire a builder and expect the house to stand. You don't take a vision and strip the visionary. And you sure as hell don't wait until 3 a.m. to realize you bet on the wrong people. I never replied. Never acknowledged the call. Never gave him the satisfaction of a second chance. Instead, I signed Lumenpath's 4th client by noon that day. It was a Tuesday. An ordinary one for most people. For me, it was the day my old life fell apart, without me. I woke up early, not from an alarm, but from excitement. Lumenpath had just inked its biggest contract yet, a major DTC brand that had been bleeding conversions for months and found our predictive onboarding model unreasonably effective. We were getting press now. Medium features. Growth hacker shoutouts. Our demo video had been reposted by a major VC on LinkedIn with the caption, "This is how you rebuild trust with users in 2025. But across the city, across the cold walls of a sterile office tower in Midtown, Greg and the team at Cinerai were on fire. Not figuratively. The system had pushed a mass opt-out campaign to every dormant user in their CRM. The problem? Those users weren't dormant. They were active. Engaged. High LTV. It wasn't a glitch. It was architecture. My architecture. Twisted. Gutted. And rebuilt without understanding the original principles. Like trying to perform brain surgery after skimming an article about anatomy. A friend inside the company sent me a screenshot from their Slack. "We need Ashley. Does anyone have her number?" Greg tried calling her again. She didn't pick up. I stared at the messages longer than I should have. I didn't feel pride. Not really. What I felt was confirmation. The still, quiet affirmation that I'd been right all along. Not just about the tech, but about the people. They wanted growth without listening. Innovation without risk. My ideas without my voice. And now they had nothing. That afternoon, a journalist from TechCrunch reached out for comment. They'd heard rumors. A major exodus. Product collapse. Lawsuits pending. I declined to speak. I didn't need to say anything. Lumenpath was speaking loud enough. With its numbers, with its product, with its soul. That night, Rima came by my place with Thai takeout and 2 tiny bottles of champagne. We sat on the floor of my apartment, laptops open, cold noodles between us, finalizing our next pitch deck. She looked up and smiled. "Do you think they regret it?" she asked. I thought about Greg, about the boardroom, about that hollow phrase, "not a culture fit." I smiled back. I don't care, and I meant it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't success. It's freedom. The kind that lets you eat pad thai at midnight in your own damn company, with people who believe in what you're building. And sleep, finally, with a clear heart. The email came at 8:17 a.m. Subject line. Urgent. Hoping to connect. From Greg Rosenfeld. I didn't open it right away. I was at our new office, a bright corner space in Soma, with plants in every window and walls still smelling of fresh paint. My calendar was packed. 2 investor meetings, a demo with our newest enterprise client, and a coffee with a female founder I was mentoring. But there it was, sitting like a ghost from another life. When I finally opened it, the message was short. "Ashley, we made a mistake. The team is struggling. We've lost several key accounts, and the system is unstable. I know it's a lot to ask, but would you be open to a conversation? Just to explore some kind of path forward. We miss your leadership. We see now what we couldn't see then. Greg." I read it twice, then once more. There was no gloating, no smile of satisfaction, only stillness, because I had finally reached a place I thought I'd never get to. I didn't need them to know I was right. I didn't need them to fail. I didn't even need an apology. I had already won. Lumenpath was thriving, not in spite of what had happened, but because of it. We built every line of code, every onboarding funnel, every AI-driven personalization model with intention. With clarity. With voice. My voice. The one they once called too idealistic, too disruptive, too much. Now, that voice had helped build something real. Something that couldn't be bought or duplicated. I hit reply. Greg, thank you for reaching out. I genuinely wish you and the team clarity and success. But I'm exactly where I need to be. Ashley. I hit send, closed my laptop, and walked out into the light. The city was waking up, streets humming, coffee carts steaming, possibility in the air. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing permission. I wasn't trying to fit in. I was building, living, free. And this time, no one could fire me from it.